Welcome, you're watching the debut show of Decoding Now with me, Meghna Deka. Well, on this show, every night we will be explaining just how one twist can transform the tale and one detail can redefine the truth. We don't pick sides, we piece them together. Tonight, we will decode. Is President Trump a divine healer? As he depicts himself, we are going to put out the two visuals which are going to be contrasting and telling you what the story really is going to be. Is Trump a divine healer as he depicts himself, or is he the spawn of Satan as his rivals see him? You have seen the two visuals there behind me on your screens, which more or less explain this entire story to you. We will tell you how two of the most powerful Americans, President Trump and Pope Leo, are clashing over Christ. While Trump invokes divine powers to justify the war on Iran, Pope Leo says God rejects the prayers of killers. These are the three aspects we are going to be decoding tonight on the show. First, is Trump depicting himself as Christ to appease the Christian right? That is what we are going to be showing here on Decoding Now. The second aspect we are going to be decoding: has mocking Pope Leo been a master stroke, or is it a blunder for Trump? The third one that we are going to press continue, go on to the third one that we have is: will the clash of two powerful Americans, Trump and Pope, split Christians? That's the question. But first, let's take a close look at the AI-generated image that President Trump has shared of himself on Truth Social, in which he appears like Jesus. Well, you can see this on your screens. This is Trump dressed as Jesus. You can see him wearing robes, draped in ropes. He's surrounded by divine light as well. You can see a halo as well behind him in this. And he is seemingly depicted as a healing man. Healing this man there on your screens, you can see with his hand, and you have this light coming out from his hand, healing a person. This is the man whom he appears to be healing in the post that he's put out. He's flanked by supporters. Now, his supporters are being dressed as angels, nurses as well. You can see them here. This one appears wearing the dress of a nurse, and you have another one who is positioned like an angel would with her hands together. Well, he's also flanked by two other men, both of them who appear to be soldier-like figures. Here, you have this one in an army military hat and a similar one on the other side as well. This is the visualization, very, very significant, what it symbolically really is being shown. In fact, you can see from the skies, there is what appears to be the descent of a divine warrior army as well. Very, very Avengerish-like. Remember the Armageddon similarities which have been brought in as well, the juxtaposition for this. Now, in this image, you can also see fighter jets which are flying across the sky. They are leaving behind trails. Here you have it. Fighter jets leaving behind trails, while fireworks are also bursting in the background, which suggests military might and celebration of the American army. But interestingly, and this is very significant, the next one right here is the Statue of Liberty. Why is this so significant? The Statue of Liberty is visible back there in the distance, which further emphasizes the American identity. After all, Trump has been trying to reach out and create that MAGA dream as well. Now remember, this post comes shortly after Trump had publicly criticized Pope Leo the 14th, calling him weak. Well, Trump may see himself as a messiah, a panacea for all the problems. But the real question is, why is Trump mocking the Pope? Well, before we get into that, let's take you straight to this battle for God's word between Pope and President Trump over the Iran war. Let's tell you, you have Trump who justifies it, saying that God supports US's action in Iran. You have Pope who says God does not bless a war. Then you have Trump who says the next quote that we are going to be showing you, that God wants people taken care of. Pope says God rejects the prayers of killers. Very harsh words being used. Third, you have Trump saying God doesn't like what's happening. Pope Leo says annihilation threat given by President Trump of the Iranian civilization is unacceptable. These are the kind of clash of words, clash of ideas that we have seen between President Trump and Pope. In fact, it's important for us to tell you what the larger context is. Listen in to the holy war of words, if you may, between President Trump and Pope Leopold.
I don't think he's doing a very good job. He likes crime, I guess. We don't like it. We don't like a pope that's going to say that it's okay to have a nuclear weapon. We don't want a pope that says crime is okay in our cities. I don't like it. I'm not a big fan of Pope Leo. He's a very liberal person, and he's a man that doesn't believe in stopping crime. He's a man that doesn't think that we should be toying with a country that wants a nuclear weapon so they can blow up the world. I'm not a fan of Pope Leo.
I have no fear neither the Trump administration nor speaking out loudly about the message of the gospel. And that's what I mean. I am called to know what the church is called to do. We're not politicians. We're not trying to make foreign policy also with the same perspective that he might understand. But I do believe that the message of the gospel, blessed are the peacemakers, is the message of the Lord. Thank you very much for clarifying.
So the Pope says it's important to speak the gospel truth, and he's not afraid of the Trump administration. But this is not the first time that Christianity's highest authority and the president of the world's most powerful nation have clashed. Let's take you through the specific flashpoints between Pope Leo and President Trump. When it comes to the Iran conflict, this is the clash that we have seen. You have Trump saying a whole civilization is going to die, to which the Pope had said, this threat is truly unacceptable. Then, when it came to the nuclear stance, you had Trump saying the Pope is weak on nuclear, that he actually wants some country which wants nuclear power, and he's trying to defend him. Pope had said, end this display of power. Then you had other flashpoints as well. For example, when it comes to global leadership, Trump had said, I'm not a fan of Leo. He's, of course, talking about the first ever American Pope, saying, I'm not a fan of Leo, is what the president said. Pope Leo then said, I don't fear his administration. You just heard him there in that soundbite. When it comes to deportation, you have President Trump saying, these individuals are an invasion. You have Pope Leo saying, mass deportation is truly inhuman. When it comes to the papal role, Trump says, he should stop being a politician, he said about the Pope. And when it comes to the Pope, he says, gospel's message is very clear, that he's speaking the word of the gospel and not of politics. Well, let's remind you how Trump has invoked God in the middle of his war on Iran, repeatedly suggesting that God was on America's side. Well, let's remind you. First week into the Iran war, you had Trump who held a prayer meeting at the Oval Office. Then he says that the whole civilization will die. He's talking about Iran, saying that it's going to be the end of an entire civilization. That is like Trump's apocalypse. Then you had the F-15, remember the airman who was rescued successfully by the American Air Force and the American Army. Trump at the time had said that this is an Eastern miracle. Again, holy words being used, directly linking this prowess to divinity. Trump then went on during his Armageddon rhetoric saying Trump was anointed by Jesus, is what he had tried to say. Of course, all of this Armageddon rhetoric has been coming in round and round again and again in different words. This is what many say Trump's God complex. But why this God complex? Why is Trump invoking God again and again? Because the devil, as they say, lies in the details. And here are the details. From making America great again to perhaps make approvals great again? Well, that's what many are saying. Well, this faith, or is this politics which is dressed as faith? Let's tell you the approval rating before the war for President Trump. 48% approved of him, 48% didn't approve of him, the others were unsure. But now after the war, when the casualties pile on, when the body bags are coming in, and when you have inflation striking, then you have the approval rating of Trump coming down. 54% of the people of America disapproving of President Trump. Only 42% are approving of one Trump has handled war with Iran. Well, the internet, of course, is seeing the funny side of it. And why not? Everyone's having a go at it. After Trump put out that post where he depicts himself dressed as God, depicted himself dressed as Christ, he has this entire backlash coming in on social media. Let's get you some of these. Well, for example, you have this one where you have Trump blessing and healing a man who appears to be Jeffrey Epstein. That's right. The second one we are going to show you. There are others as well in this. You have Melania Trump and others. This one, you have President Trump with the Israeli flag in the background and with what he appears to be the priest of a Jewish priest, essentially saying that he is the head of all Jews, saying that essentially he has given in to what the Jewish state of Israel wants. That is what it means. Then you have this one which says Jesus doesn't want to see this. He just has no choice, is what one of the persons had put out. The next one that we are going to show for you is this one where you can see God allegedly crushing Trump right here, crushing Trump under his feet. These are the kind of words which are coming in, tweets which are coming in. You have this conversation between Trump and God where he says, how many more schools should I bomb in Iran? How many more concentration camps should I create? To which God appears to be telling Trump, what level of hell are you trying to get to exactly? This is the kind of conversation which has been doing the rounds. And you have another one. For example, you have Trump and Christ who appear to be walking towards the gates of hell, where you have Christ saying, I don't usually walk people to the gates of hell, but I decided to make a special exception for you this time. And these are just some of the posts coming in. Let me go across to our panelists. Today, joining us on the show is Christopher Hale, a Democrat strategist, also Greg Swenson, who's joining us, a Republican strategist. Greg Swenson, I'm going to start with you. It appears that the two most powerful, perhaps the two most powerful Americans in the world today are clashing over God. Why is the rhetoric of God, of divinity, of Jesus Christ being dragged into to justify or slam this war?
Yeah, I think it's probably a bit more than we in the audience or we in the public would like to see. And, you know, look, we're all very enthused about the Pope coming from America, first American Pope. You know, the Pope Leo went to a similar university to the Catholic university that I attended. I mean, this was all good news. I do think he's perhaps overstepped on, in a way, taking sides on this conflict. I think popes in general, historically, have always just, you know, argued for peace and hoped for the best. And, you know, we hope the conflict ends. That's okay. But I think that, you know, his criticism of the president might be a little much. And of course, President Trump, on the other hand, is provocative. And, you know, he's funny. I think he's funny. Sometimes he offends people. That's probably an understatement. And so, you know, he's probably taken this a bit too far. But, you know, I think what's important to the president is the outcome. And it's whether he has these little personal spats with people is somewhat indifferent.
Greg Swenson, do you think the outcome is going to be appeasement of the far-right Christian vote? Or do you think they'd be offended by the president targeting the Pope? And let's not forget, the first American Pope in history.
Yeah, no, there won't be any offense taken on the conservative wing of the party. And if there are, they'll get over it quickly. We understand the president's provocative. He's not afraid to insult people. He's done it, you know, to his friends and foes. And so, you know, I think even the fact that his approval ratings went down, as you mentioned in your introduction, you know, he knew that was coming. He saw that they had 60 kilograms of enriched uranium and were 4 weeks from 2 nuclear weapons. He had to act, and you know, ratings be damned. I mean, he doesn't care that much about ratings compared to what the outcome would have been if the mullahs had a nuclear weapon. So, and I think the argument about body bags, there's been 13 casualties, and that's tragic. But by every measure and every metric, this has been an overwhelmingly one-sided conflict. And so I think that's what's important to the president.
Yes, I agree. It is a one-sided conflict because the war, thankfully for America, hasn't been fought on its soil. Christopher Hale.
That's right.
You have these two images which are there. We are going to put it out on our screen, the split images. Trump seems to have a God complex. You have others who are saying that he's the spawn of Satan. But which way is America swinging in all of this? Will the invocation of divine blessings for this war really ensure that there is justification for this war in the minds of the American people and the populace?
I think one of the things that we're seeing is we're seeing this war gets less and less popular as it goes on. We were promised a very quick war. We were told that this war ended over a month ago. It clearly has not. And I actually disagree with Greg. I think attacking the Pope is going to actually cause even more rift in the MAGA coalition. You were already seeing among MAGA Catholics. MAGA Catholics had the lowest approval of this war of all denominations. There has been constant pushback from Pope Leo XIV, as Greg mentioned. But I remind you that Pope John Paul II, on the outset of the Iraq War, called it a, quote, defeat for humanity, end quote. So there's this historic nature of popes speaking out against American-led conflicts, and it's clear that Pope Leo does not approve of this. And I think this absurdity of attacking the Pope, mind you, last May he did an AI image imagining Donald Trump imagining himself being Pope, and then posting himself as Jesus Christ. You're offending the entirety of your coalition, MAGA Catholics, MAGA evangelical, the entire Christian community writ large. And this comes after mocking Islam just a week ago. Praise be to Allah, tweet on Easter Sunday. The only faith he has not, the three major faiths he has not attacked is Judaism. Will that be next weekend? So I think this is a very bad moment for the president of the United States. And I think that he's going, look, if you lose 5% of the Catholic base of your party, you're going to lose elections. You're going to lose big. And he's already down quite a bit in the midterm. And I think this is a big deal for J.D. Vance as he's running in 2028. How does he defend this?
Yeah, how's it coming up in the midterms? Christopher Hale, I have a follow-up question. In the midterms,
Sure.
Is this entire holy war going to get reflected on the ground as well in the ballots?
Yes, I think it will. There's very few moments that break through in today's age. This is going to break through. This is going to be a moment that is an apex of criticism. The past 6 weeks have just been absurd. We've gone from scandal to scandal, but we've been able to hone in again and again. And I think, once again, from the polling we see, about 85% of Republicans support this war. That might sound good to a lot of people, but if you go into a midterm election with only 85% of your base with you, you are going to lose. So I think it's going to mobilize the Democrats. We want to vote. It's going to demoralize the Republicans and divide the base.
Dividing the base. Final question. I'll give you 10 seconds. Greg Swenson, divine or diabolical?
So far, it hasn't divided the base, but I'm with Chris. If the midterms were tomorrow, this would not be good news. And I think, but back to your point about invoking God, that's sort of a traditional American thing. Look, the astronauts did it over the weekend on their return. They did it in their press conference. The U.S. airman who was rescued on
Astronauts
Easter
are not
Sunday,
bombing schools in other countries in their
he
defense.
said God is good.
So that parallel really doesn't stand.
Well, I'm just suggesting that the reference to God that the president makes is not unusual for military leaders and political leaders. That's just a common thing in the United States.
Okay. Thank you so much, Christopher Hale, as well as Greg Swenson. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but pleasure having you on the show and to have both sides of the story as well. We're just piecing it together here on Decoding Now so that our viewers can decide for themselves. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.